stage Jared, Joe, Andy, and Iz. Come on, you guys could be louder than that. You very well.
What's up, everybody?
Where's Samuel at? I need him to let everybody know that's in the building that we are doing the best panel of the weekend, guys. Best panel. How's everybody doing? Good. How's my panel feeling?
These chairs are comfy.
I know, right? I'm like, man, where's the blanket? How you feeling, Andy?
I'm good, man.
You were in there destroying it in there in that
I know.
MPC cold, just off the cuff. How you doing, Joe?
All good here, man. All feeling right.
Feeling right? Yeah. How's everyone doing today? Yeah. Shout out to ASU for always putting on an amazing event that's built around their love of music. Like, shout out to everybody on the ASU squad that makes it happen. Well, I guess, thanks for having us today. Thank you, inMusic and Roland, for pulling up and being a part of this. It means a lot. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the folks here at the ASU. And I think I was mentioning this to you earlier, Jared. One of the things that I've always talked to the students about is you never know how things are going to come together in this game, right? It's a lot of times it's like through osmosis, and you think the doors that open because you did that, right? And what's crazy is, I've known Jared since 2017, and we're both working in education. And years down the road, I run into him at NAM, and I meet Aaron, and that was like my first introduction to coming out here to ASU. And in the background of that, I've been rocking with the inMusic family for almost 17 years, maybe more. And it's like how all this comes together. Right now, we're all sitting on your chairs, getting ready to talk, and I think that's a testament to what I've been saying to a lot of the students here is that, relationships and how well you manage them is a huge part of to where you're looking to end up. And none of this would have happened without, one, our common love for music, and just being good people, and being stewards of the opportunity. I think for anything, when you look at what we're going to discuss, which is, legacy, right? Built to last. I mean, to me, that symbolizes a career, right? A long period of time. And for me, just to be in a place where I've been rocking with the inMusic family for as long as I have, that's really about being just a good steward of the relationship and always staying tapped in. And I think we're all here because we've all made it a point to stay tapped in with each other, right? And now we get to come here and kind of share these experiences and really kind of like peel the onion back and talk about some things that I think point back to the past, point to the future, and how you get there, right? So I kind of want to open it up to you guys, especially with you, Andy, just kind of knowing your lineage of the road of Akai and MPC and how that's impacted your life, but also the things you've been able to see, right? You've been able to see creatives that they're stubborn users of the machine that they love, right? So you've been able to understand both sides when you're rolling out something new, and what that experience is like for you. Because I know one thing I will say is I'm a little jealous because every time I see a video of you, you're always one of my heroes, and I'm like, man, can I get some one-on-one time with Teddy Riley? You know what I mean? But just to see you in that space, I think you've done an incredible job, bro. Honoring the past, but also bringing us along to the new. So if you can, just kind of share a little bit about that and how that works in your world.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man. So I'll go back in time a little bit. So I've been at Akai now for 20 years. I've been in the music industry for probably about another decade on top of that. And I started out, like, I knew what I wanted to do. I left school early, like 15 years old, and I always wanted to be in the music industry. Didn't know how to do it, had no idea. There was no advert that said, hey, there's a job this is how you become an artist or a music producer or whatever. And you have to find the way by connections. So I remember I thought, if I go and work at a music shop, I'll meet more people that are into what I want to do. So I went to Anderton's Music in the 90s, this was. And this was a really great period because a lot of the Roland stuff was coming out, like JB 1080s and stuff. And it was an amazing period because everyone who was coming through the store, I'd talk to them about what do they do, you know, and you start realizing that these people are in this world that you want to be a part of. And you have to find a way to get into that circle. So as time went on, I ended up opening up my own studio, ended up getting signed. And that's when I started to realize that you start learning a craft of making records. Because when you leave a complex like this, it sets you up with everything that you need to know, but then you start learning after. Because what happens is you start working with real artists and you get put into like pressure spots of being able to understand how to vocal someone, you know, how do you record vocals, how do you mix a record, how do you do all these different things. So I was doing a lot of that for a while, and then like the industry started changing, and I discovered MPC. I was following every music producer you could ever think of from the 90s through to the 2000s, and I was like, I got this knowledge of making beats, using equipment, and I want to share it with people. Because I kind of didn't want to be in the studios as much as I wanted to, and I wanted to be more into the training aspect of things. So I went after Akai. I literally said, I want to work for that company because I can make a change, and there's something that I can do that I can bring into a community. And this is prior to YouTube and everything. So as the years went on, first time I met you was 2012.
Yeah.
When we released Renaissance. So I'm at the NAMM show and I'm looking around, and there's every hero that you could think of. And I'm just getting goosebumps of seeing all of these people. And then when I think about what I do now, all those people are friends of mine. I deal with them all the time. And it was all based on believing in yourself and having relationships with people. Like the amount of people I've met in this industry that have known me from things that I've done in the past, you meet all these people again, and you never know what door that will open for you.
And that's so great to hear. I think what some of the things that I've mentioned to the students is that, you know, when you're in music in this particular field, one, it's a very competitive sport, right? I think now we're at a point where over 150,000 songs are being ingested every single day, right? So that just kind of gives you the lay of the land. And I know prior to the tools that exist now through technology and social media, like there was one point where like me and my brother would, you know, look up every studio that was in LA, get the address and just show up, right? Just show up to be around, right? Then we found out BMI and ASCAP had these events throughout the world. Okay, let's figure out how we can get in. And just making it a point to be at these places, you know, to be around the environment, to hopefully meet somebody that I could say, hey man, I got some records, and you know, just if you can, check them out, right? So I think it's a good thing to really buckle down and understand the importance of like looking at your landscape, looking where you're at, and putting yourself in the environment constantly.
And you're right, because like, even though what I do now is still in the music industry, right? Everything that I learned from making records and dealing with labels and building relationships is exactly what I do now. And I use some examples. When we launched MPC Sample, the list of people that reached out was quite astronomical. It was unbelievable. Like every name you could think of was hitting us up going, hey man, can I get one of these? Where can I get one from? You know, everywhere's sold out.
I know, it was one of them.
I was like, hey Joe! Yeah. And but when I think about why these people reach out to me, as an example, a couple of years ago, Pete Rock, his manager, reached out and said, hey, you know, Pete's interested in some of the new stuff you guys are making. I jumped on a plane straight from London, within 2 hours, I was, then I was in New York 6 hours later, went to his house, showed him the unit, and then flew back the next morning. And that little kind of like moment that I had with P led into what we're doing with him today. And it's relationship building. When you see an opportunity, I seize it. And it's the same like anyone who came to NAMM last year and this year, we had probably a lineup that if someone said to me you're going to have all these names on stage, I would have gone no way. But it's all been built from just relationships and really putting your trust in artists and helping them with their journey of bringing them into the new world of technology.
No, that's amazing. I think too, one of the things I definitely want to talk about with Joe and Jared is just the evolution of sound, especially from your lens, Joe, being, president of Moog. You got a lot of things out there that are in a competing space, but understanding the importance of why Moog still means something, right? And why it's able to still transcend, time, right? What that means to you and how you continue to carry that legacy on. I always say as the music world is being minimized to a laptop, just being able to see those differences and still allow there to be a space and a need for an iconic synth like a Moog.
Yeah, so I've got the privilege of having Bob Moog kind of as the author of this brand and how shaped it.
Anybody know Bob Moog?
Bob Moog, you've heard of the guy.
I would suggest to see his documentary. It's amazing.
So the thing that Bob did better than anybody, and I'll get to the music and the instruments part of it, but this shouldn't be missed. He listened better than anyone who knew him as they expressed their time with Bob and what he brought to the table. He just listened. And he would be the first to say, these tools that I create, I don't know what the artists are going to do with them until they have them in hand. And then I listen to what they want to do with these after they put them to work. So I think Moog is a great example of a brand who's been shaped by the artists and the musicians themselves. So you talk to our instrument designers and engineers that bring these things to life, they're following a storyline that's been built and shared over time by producers, performers, artists, all those cats that really express their need. And one thing I think Moog's done a good job of is continuing to listen. And put it in local context, it's a student. It's a student of music. It's a student of production and performance. And I'm proud that it hasn't lost that. Now, one thing that gets noisy oftentimes is the lore that comes with Moog. I mean, there's so many stories associated with the brand. I mean, it hasn't led a successful business life its entire time. It's had some ups and downs. So there's always these stories tied to it. And Bob was so engaged with the community around him that everyone met Bob at some point or another. I mean, everyone from Herb Deutsch, who helped to create what became synthesizers, to folks who benefited from a house call that he made to fix a synthesizer. So anyway, that lore gets noisy in a way that you only think in terms of Moog at that time when it happened. And the problem that comes with doing that is you don't give the brand enough room to breathe and change.
Evolve.
So what we find ourselves having to do is stop asking ourselves, what do we think Bob would do right for the brand? But what would Bob do today in the context of 2026? What would he do in 2025, 2024? Would he still be making exclusive analog gear? Would it be hand assembled the way it was today? Would it be recreations of the past? Or would he be well into the future in bringing digital and hybrid and analog together and modulating sound in a way that is animated and all? And there's an answer to that, right? And that answer that we believe is what we act on in the instrument. And I think that common thread becomes the sound that's Moog, right? That growl, the beat, the bass that comes up with it. All the instruments that you've read in the liner notes over the years that have made all the tracks that we've all grown to love. And that all makes it really easy to keep the brand on track. But it takes an open mind. It takes giving it the room to breathe and still listen. Because once you go through and introduce an instrument or a category of instruments, you don't know that you've done it right until the same musicians that are expressing their point of view are heard. And then you apply that learning to what the next instrument might be. So it's a long journey, but it's a fun one, man.
Those are great words, Joe. And that's the thing too, because you see it from such a high elevation, and I think being able to understand all the nuances of what that brand represents and what it's loved for, right? And being able to carry that into the future so the new creatives of today can also embrace the same thing that we loved about Boot, which was an undeniable sonic experience, right? And that's, to me, is priceless. Mr. Jared.
Let me jump in here. So, super honored to be actually a part of this group. You guys are on a level that I aspire to be, but I will say I'm the director of education for Roland, so my perspective is it is students and it is institutions like this, but it is also the Roland brand. So the question is, why should you use Roland products when you could just go into your laptop and open FL Studio, et cetera, which is also just as valid. But I would say why these things still exist is because the creative experience that you get from them is unique.
Yeah.
And, why does the MPC sample blowing up right now? It's a form factor and a sonic and physical experience that's inspiring. And that's why it still exists. That's why the 808 still exists. That's why the 909, that's all these instruments. The brands up here are making things like the guitar. The idea of the guitar is thousands of years old, right? The modern romantic guitar that we know today is like 100 years old. But I call them thought forms, exist for a reason because we as humans, for some reason, like them. It's like HTML code. It's still here.
Yeah.
It works. We use it.
And that's the key thing. I think what's tried and true, I think, in our game is what we get married to, right? It's what's tried and true, and it's what gives you goosebumps.
Yeah.
When you detune that low tom on an 808, man, it's, think of what that did for hip hop culture, right? And it's 808 frequency is still, you know what I mean? Like, no, it was, again, I always say NS10s were never meant to be near fields. They just happen to end up being near fields, right? You never know how the end user is going to make it work.
That's right. I will challenge the students in here in your own workflow, in your own process to, for a second when you're doing something, think about how you're feeling as you do it. What are you getting out of that? And if you're not getting something, also people get tired of stuff. Humans get tired of things. Yeah. That's why there isn't just the MPC 3000, right? Yeah. We had to evolve. The 808 is like, I don't know, I should know this, 30, 40, the company's 50 years old. I got to get my facts straight, but
it's old as hell, man. It's old as hell.
We're still shaking trunks with the same sound because it just works.
Yeah.
So,
and too, I think it has a special ingredient. I mean, there's a sonic texture that's just,
But you got to think though, right? When you look at these brands that are up here, like I said, we've all been in the industry a long time. You think Roland defined so many music genres, right? 808, 909, right? Literally the birth of house music, and it's still defined today. There's not a techno record without a 909 on it. You take MPC of where we are today with the culture of hip hop, trap music, R&B, everything. These devices have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Same as Moog, with where Moog is going, with like the Muse, the Mini D. You see these things on stage, like a stage setup isn't one if you don't see a Moog on there, right? So the fact that we got these brands and like we're all friends, we all know each other from NAS, and we have this passion for equipment. And what makes it so special is when you see these products are still winning today. But the thing you got to think about is, how do you move them into the future? Like, how do you keep them relevant? And how do you connect with the younger audience who you were saying are into FL Studio and stuff like that?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I think one of the things that I've always championed to creatives is to use the tools that allow you to create your own creative identity. One thing I loved about whether it was Roland, whether it was the Lin drum machine, whether it was an MPC, you had to really pour into it before it was able to become something, right? So nowadays, a lot of the creatives, they lean on sound packs, which is great. But I think there's still something to be said. Like when you look at the lineage of Tay, right? Teddy had a different thing. Timbo had a different thing. Dilla had a different thing. Because it was more about utilizing the machine versus the machine utilizing you. And I think that's something to be said about the consistency, where this common thread is, as we talk to the creative about the creative process. And I think that's important. I think that's what separates everybody's individual creation. You know, when you look at a mode, you got to turn some knobs, right? You got to turn some oscillators, right? You got to really know how to dive in to make sure that thing stays in tune, right? And there's some, like I said, there's something to be said about taking that extra initiative to really carve out the sound that identifies who you are as a songwriter, as a beat maker, or a producer. You know, what's your fingerprint? And I think a lot of the products that exist within these families allow you to create a fingerprint. And I think that's what I love the most, you know.
Yeah, I think there's something, if I can add to that. There's so many different ways to make sound or noise or music, whatever you want to call it. They mean different things to us.
Yeah.
I think at some point you got to stop yourself and ask, how much do you want to invest in the experience of creating this vision or this sonic template that you're trying to bring to life, or programming what that sound is and what your creative flow is. And I'm not to judge whether menu diving is good or bad, right or wrong, but you'll choose different tools by virtue of how you get to that sound you're trying to create.
Yeah.
Right. Turning a knob may be a sonic experience that you can follow audibly, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe turning a knob to get to a data value or a character that sets a program where you want it to be, so it does some different modulation thing somewhere else. But those are two different paths, right? And we don't have to judge whether that's good or bad, but to understand what you're trying to get to helps you figure out which tools might be better. And there are so many tools coming at you, and there are more to come.
Yeah.
Right? AI is going to be a thing, and everyone's going to snap their fingers, and there's 4 more VSTs. It's not even lunch yet, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not turned off by that at all. But when I turn a knob on the Model D, I know how it's going to sweep. I know what that does, and that's cool for me.
Yeah.
When I plug a quarter-inch jack into a J-bass, I know what happens when I plug into an amp. That's all still cool. If I got to program something, I got to call someone way smarter than me, right? Either of these guys, these cats will figure that out. It's not my thing. I'm cool with it, though. There's room for it. And the magic can also then happen when you introduce this relationship between some new technology and old technology and let them behave with each other and come alive like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, flashback not that many years when Eurorack became a thing and all the sounds were happening. We're all terrified by these small modules. And then you sit up there in a sound bathroom listening to, oh my God, it was unbelievable, right? How could we not live in that environment? What was intimidating then is now a necessary part of modulating a great sound. So how can a 55-year-old instrument be a modern instrument when you start introducing modulation and sound control that might be new and modern, whether it's digital or analog, and bring that sound forward? That's new.
Yeah.
It's fresh. It's good.
Makes you feel something, you know. And I think we all know as creators when something makes you feel a certain way, you know. And I don't know, when I create, I'm always looking to capture that, right? It's like, if I'm going to use an 808, I'm going to tweak it, I'm going to twist it. I want it to make you feel something. And I think that's a great way to lead into creativity, is however you use it, however you use your tool, just make sure it feels like something to you, right? Because everybody can replicate, everybody can duplicate, or can't duplicate, because I've yet to hear when anyone really duplicate Dilla, but I think you can aspire, you can reach, but again, that's why I think, you know, creative identity is a huge piece to what we do and why we continue to champion the tools that we do. So I keep that on board.
Can I build off something you said there? So I would, again, you know, coming from the education and developing talent, I would encourage everyone to kind of step back sometimes and think of the devices that you're using as, I think of them as sound engines, but really they're peat brushes, right? And let's say Mo is a brand of peat. We could make the same tone with a Moog device and a Roland device, but they're going to be slightly different.
Yeah.
So, you know, Ableton is a sound engine. FL, they're all sound engines. So think about it, just offering this to maybe inspire. When you're combining things to make your music, you can make a special potion of sound engines, right? Maybe there's, you know, people are in there's a vintage VST market now. Let's think about that, right?
Yeah.
Those are sound engines that don't exist anymore. Since from 2004, that's a sound, right? So as you're, and I'm speaking mostly to producers, but also songwriters, vocalists, everything else, the things that you combine together will make a unique formula. So I'm just encouraging you to step back a little bit, and when you're buying gear or downloading these things, think, is that sound engine gonna fit nicely with the other stuff I've got?
Yeah.
Or am I only using Ableton native VSTs, and that's why my thing sounds like Ableton? Ableton has a sound.
Yeah.
FL has a sound. Pro Tools has a sound. Akai has a sound.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. One of the other things that I do want to touch on, I do get this question a lot with students, and it's like the idea of thinking you have to have it all figured out right now as a creative. And I think I mentioned that to a couple of you guys, and just to hear the perspective on what that is, and what piece of that is important in understanding, what lane you fall in. Do you need to fall in all the lanes right now, or you just need to focus on that lane that speaks to you currently and just plug away? How important is it to be able to come to a place of understanding what your next move is, and thinking that you have to know it all right now. You have to have everything figured out. I know I didn't have things figured out at a young age, especially with music.
Do you know what? It's a really interesting question because, like, I don't think anyone really knows.
I still don't know.
It's like, all I knew is I had this passion for music, and I had no idea where it would take me. And you always have your parents like, do you need a backup plan or whatever? I did a job. I had no backup plan, I had nothing, because this is not going to work. I got big problems. And, but you find a way. Like, I always look at people around me that have, and there's one thing that you have to succeed in anything that we do. You have to have the passion, because you're going to do this every day. You're going to wake up every day. And I always say to Joe that this is not a job I do. This is a lifestyle that I live. I don't look at the clock. I probably do 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I love what I do. I'll have artists call me at 3 a.m. I pick up their calls. It's because every day I wake up, something new happens. Like 2 weeks ago, Joe hit me up, hey, do you want to come over to Arizona and do some conferences? It was like, yeah, let's do this, and it's because of the passion of being able to share your journey with people who want to be a part of this amazing industry that we're in. And it really is like, if you could do this for the rest of your life, and it doesn't matter if that means you're you might want to be an artist, but you might end up being a songwriter, right? And so many people I know set out to be an artist and ended up being one of the most, prolific songwriters ever. And that's where you don't know where your journey will take you. You just have to have passion.
Yeah.
I think if I can jump on that, I think the people we meet along the way in this industry, it's small for a reason. The music industry is small. And I think there's a real attraction between the special people that are in that, right? Everyone up here on the panel we go back, Aaron, Samuel, there's such great people. It's hard to meet people in this industry that aren't great people. They just weed themselves out. And I think that's what keeps us together. It's good. I think there's a mistake that I made way early in music, and that is believing that there is one destination that occurs when you find success in music. That was a mistake. And here's how I corrected that mistake. I started really identifying these smaller moments of truth as little victories of mine. And the more each moment of truth stacked on the previous, it was that much more satisfying and rewarding. And I wanted more of that. It became an addiction to find more of these moments of truth in front of me. And it got me to get outside of my comfort zone. It got me out of the back of the stage up to the front and have more conversations and interactions with crowds and being more vocal. And I think if I were to encourage those who are comfortable stepping out of their comfort zone, like our friend upstairs when we were jamming earlier, identify what those multiple moments of truth might be that bring you satisfaction and joy. And the more of those you get, the more of those you want. And when all's said and done, you may hit that final moment of truth that you didn't know was in front of you. But along the way, you're going to get the memories, you're going to get the relationships with people, you're going to get drawn into this thing. You're going to experience brands and products that are unforgettable. You're going to work 18 hours a day and pick up the phone at 3 a.m. and sit in Arizona 2 weeks later. These are great, man. This is a moment of truth right here. This is one of those things. And being next to these cats, it means a lot to me. And whatever your choice path is, go get them. But find a lot of moments of truth. Stack them up, count them up.
That's a gem right there. That's a gem for sure. Jared, let me ask you, how quick do you see just the creative appetite evolving just from your lens and what you do in the educational road?
Like students or?
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question. And kind of, I'm going to use what you said too. I think that, and I'm speaking mostly for myself, but this is what I've observed. A lot of people in this conference are saying, know your why, know your why. I don't actually know my why. And every time someone says that, I actually get a little nervous. Is I wanted to be famous a why? Is I wanted to be rich a why? Because those are definitely in there for me. I don't never admitted that, but that's really it.
Yeah.
And I think that's fairly common. But that feeling of wanting something that you can't define, I think, is that creative force and that wind.
Yeah.
That it's an aggressive force.
Yeah.
And this is why I really respect Gen Z, is because Gen Z has to deal with so much coming in that for Gen Z to force it out, that's an extra effort. And it's even more of an extra effort to identify what's going to be unique. And we've all heard, don't chase hits. I think you should not chase hits. If anything, and the creative appetite here, I think you should get weird. I think you should take what you're doing, multiply it by 10, then multiply it by 15 million. And you don't have to show anyone that stuff.
Yeah.
So back to the topic, maybe some weird tools. I used to say if someone made a hit where everyone was banging on a trash can, then pretty much everyone's going to bang on a trash can. So I find the creative appetite will never change. The challenges in front of it do change.
Yeah.
But I think the intensity, it's probably a constant.
Yeah.
But extreme respect to this generation coming up, and I'm super dedicated to helping find that pathway in the noise the noise is real, as you mentioned.
Yeah. How about you, Andy?
Yeah, I think for me, really, to see on the education side, right? One thing that I found is education is so important, right? Like when I set out to do the MPC Academy, right? My intentions were never to be the face of the brand, right? Ever. Yeah. I was always like, you know what? I really want to teach all this knowledge that I picked up over the years and share it with people, right? Just to show them how to use these devices. So as time went on, more videos, I ended up making, 400 or 500 videos. And then you go to these events and everyone gives you so much kind of just love. Yeah. In a sense of what you've done for them. They're like, God, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have learned this or done that. And it makes me feel so proud, the fact that the things that I've done to help the communities around the world is really benefited everyone of understanding how these devices work.
Right.
Even people going through struggles, they start using musical devices and stuff like that. And some of the comments I've had are so overwhelming, but I never thought that would happen. Making records 20 years ago, I've had more of an impact now in my life of helping people with tutorials and education, sharing knowledge. And it's the most rewarding part of the job for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. I had rolled out a DJ program that I was blessed to have Joe or Newmark support to really take that ride with me in education. And I'll never forget when one of my challenges with making the decision to produce the Chris Brown and Usher tour was the one thing getting me out of bed right now is my DJ program and what it's doing for kids, and I think when you have that, and this is, I think is key too for creatives, is how important it is to really be grounded in what you're doing in your current moment as a creator, right? Are you creating to inspire? Are you creating to get rich? Are you creating to impact somebody? And I think those are honest questions that we have to ask ourselves as creators. Why we do it, And I think the one thing I will say is the most important of it all is really understand who you are as best as you can at the moment, but understanding why it is you love what you love. And it might sound a little harsh or brutal, but I feel like if you can imagine a day without music in your life, music's probably not for you. Because just what music requires from you. Or Terry Lewis used to tell, he told me the best way, Joe. He said, music is one of those things where you sweat, you bleed, you cry, and you damn near die for it. And then one day, maybe it treats you right, but that's the commitment to it, right? And understanding that through all these conversations and understanding how, you get to the point of legacy and you get to the point of staying around for more than 5 minutes. It's really built on who you are as an individual, right? And understanding purpose and maintaining the right perspective through, as best as you can, through the entire journey. Because there are so many obstacles, there's so many detours in this thing called music, and you just gotta keep getting up and swinging at the ball as best as you can. And that's important for you all to know because, again, to look like what I was saying earlier is that a lot of us would like to think that what you're becoming great at is going to be the thing that opens the door, but might be the thing that you weren't even focusing on, but that's your doorway to get to the place of doing what you're actually great at. You got to be willing to walk through those doors, and you just have to be ready. You got to be ready.
What are add to this conversation as well, right? It's like when you think of Iz, right? He came through Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Like we had Jimmy Jam on our stage with Roger Lynn last year. Roger Lynn invented the drum machine, right? He invented quantize, and we've been surrounded by some of the most incredible people in the music industry. And when you say about Jimmy Jam, the amount of records that duo have made, from Alexander O'Neill, Janet Jackson, right? Like all of these hits for so many years. And you had the privilege of being the apprentice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy when I think about it. Like, I think I was telling you, at 13, I thought we were making records correctly, right? Then you get to flight time and it's like, no, we don't sequence anything. We play it from top to bottom. Okay. And, when you think about why that was a core fundamental there, Terry Lewis would always say, a song should never end the same way it started. And that's called dynamics. And those are the things you take with you as a creator, like understanding what that means, right? When you transition from a verse to a chorus, that needs to feel like something, right? And then when you get to the bridge, that needs to feel like something. And then we take you out on a vamp. That has to feel like something, right? So, I think along my journey, how that came together to what I was saying earlier was, you never know what the door is going to look like, right? That's going to open. Terry happened to hear our music over a phone and asked Big Brace Brian at Birdie Masters was, yo, do they have a deal? Over the phone, it's like, I couldn't have scripted that. I couldn't have even guessed that something like that would happen. And a week later, me and my brother were in Minneapolis, and 35 years later, that's what it is, right? So, I say that to just again encourage you guys, to just stay buckled down and know why it is you love what you love when it comes to music. Know that you got to be willing to bleed, sweat, do the work, because competition is fierce, and it's what you have to offer. It's what sets you apart. And I just a big key to it is understanding the formula for longevity and how you stick around. And I think that's key, and I think that symbolizes this panel is, I always look at Jared. Jared's a phenomenal guitar player, right? Like jazz, you wouldn't believe, but then could get on a DJ controller and do many things. And, but that's understanding, how to take on different roles in the game and just plug in. Because you will find as a creator in this game, you're going to have to wear a couple of hats. It might be on for you as an engineer. It might be off for you as an artist, right? It might be on for you as a songwriter. So those are the different things I think you need to really understand and understand why they're important. Because music is moving extremely fast and the appetite for music is extremely different. So just that little piece I want to leave you guys. You guys want to leave that with any before we open it up for questions?
Yeah, I think I want to double down on something you said. I think what gets you where you think you're going isn't going to keep you there necessarily. I think that's true with people. I think it's true with these brands that are up here. Absolutely true. If what got Moog to the show is all Moog ever did, Moog would die. It would already be dead, right? If you think Moog has a sound, you're wrong. And I will challenge you to find out quite easily. Go upstairs and strike a Moog 1 note and strike a Mini Moog Model D note and hear if they're the same sound. They are very different sounds. If Moog had the same sound it introduced 55 years ago only, there wouldn't be a need for Moog anymore, right? It's that it didn't have the same, maybe the same character, maybe the same sense, maybe the same space in the unit. Whatever it is, it's not the same. The true applies, I suspect, to all these brands. There isn't an Akai sound. There is an ensemble of sonic possibilities you get with an Akai MPC in hand. We can all agree to that, right? I think you'd say the same thing about Roland. There isn't a single, but we all talk about it. Every marketer out there says, Roland has a sound. We all do the same thing. That's what makes it easy.
Yeah.
That also can be misleading.
Yeah.
So what got Moog there isn't going to get it to where it's going to go long term, which is why it gets to change and evolve. What gets an artist to where they think they should be, they've got to be prepared to find out where how they're going to get to wherever that next moment of truth is, like I said earlier. And that's all good stuff, man. That's part of the journey. That's the fun stuff. But with so much coming at you, not knowing what 2027 is going to come with, you've got to be able to be flexible. Yeah. Be open to the fact that you're absolutely going to have to change. Get excited about it.
Yeah.
I am.
Same here. Same here.
I'm excited to stick my head in the sand and just go straight up hardware from 1992. No, but actually, I would say the people that make these devices are the keepers of that sound. The engineers at Roland have been there for a long time, and developing different sounds, yes, but also, as we say, going back to the well, which you said this, the same thing that got you there can't be the thing that keeps you going there.
Yeah.
Roland faces a challenge. We can't just make an 808 every year.
Yeah.
And somehow we do, but it's known that we have, that's why the 404 line has been so amazing. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Andy?
Yeah, innovation is so important because, you can have a brand legacy, and we're so fortunate. The MPC legacy has been around since 1988. It's been responsible for pretty much every record you could ever imagine, some of the greatest albums. But there's no, I've been in so many discussions where people are like, it's got a sound, it's got this, it's got that. And Roger Lynn, who actually designed it, it was such a great quote when he said, it's the producers that make it sound a certain way. And that's exactly what you were talking about when you think of your Teddy Riley's, the Dangerous album, your Jermaine Dupri's, your Neptunes, there's Timberlands, there's so many different people that they make a device sound a certain way. It's like again, I think you were talking about a blank canvas. It's like artists can have the same paint. It depends how they mix it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's all down to the individual and the creator for me.
Yeah.
And we're also in a period of the most amazing technology as well. So anyone who wants to get into the music industry now, it's such a great time with the resources of what's available. YouTube, influencers, tutorials, training, academies like this. It really is such a great time for just being in the music industry.
Yeah, I agree. I know we're running on time. I do want to get some questions going too, because I think it's important for you guys to have the chance to pick up rank. So can we move to questions? Anyone got a question?
We actually have like 20 minutes. So I go to a lot of trade shows. I see so much hardware, and I see a lot of new hardware. And then I also see people going through flea markets and pulling out old, crazy stuff. There's definitely this resurgence of people wanting to get their hands on stuff. And I'm interested to hear what you all think about new hardware manufacturers. Like, is there anything interesting happening on the hardware scene that's new that you're seeing that you're like, wow, that's very, very cool? Because it's one thing to like have a brand like Akai already like established and everyone's going to look at it, but like what are the things that are happening that maybe people aren't seeing and already knowing about yet that excite you as hardware manufacturers?
Can I go briefly, but go first? Let me start with what I think's not cool. I think what's not cool is when you find gear that's been so overly romanticized, it's not been given permission to expand beyond itself. Right? It's bound in this historical view of what it always should be, and the designers behind it, though many of which I get to talk to, get frustrated because they want to do something more than the brands might be allowed to do because it's been committed to this persona and not allowed to grow. And what I think some brands like I know brands like ours get to do now is I get to see what happens, and here's getting to the answer to your question, that the Eurorack categories bring to life. Different ways of modulating sound and not being afraid to connect to other gear to bring something to life, not knowing all the answers and getting out in front so you can embrace what this part does, and it accumulates into a bigger thing when it's done. And the fact that you can have multiple instruments and that changes with the same sets, it's just unbelievable to me. Now that is a business model that doesn't work for everybody. So I think where the innovation is going to come in is how do you do that with a brand at scale that is intended to appeal to a global audience, but wants the same flexibility that possibly Eurorack has to offer. So I mean, Make Noise is a great example. I think it's a fantastic organization. Erica Synths, great organization. Those things they do fantastic things, and they're not afraid to do it. You know, the courage that they bring forward is introducing innovation that's forcing other brands, maybe some of these brands we've got on the screen right now, to challenge whether or not this romantic view of what the brand is, i.e. the products are supposed to be, can evolve. And I believe they should. I believe they will, as a matter of fact.
So, again, my position at Roland is not to develop gear, but since it's in education, I do get a lot of feedback. Personally, what excites me now are interfaces that are not traditional, and I think some call this like gadget gear, but you know, someone was showing me a device where there was a joystick, and that joystick changed the quality of the chord. So personally, and I don't know if this is commercially viable or not, but I'm interested in things that are human interfaces that are different and therefore force a different kind of creativity. And then I like to see those things integrated into traditional things. I will say, I think the Ableton Push is a great invention, and that was sort of a game changer that took the interface a little bit differently and has continued to.
I think for me, not being biased, the MPC sample is an example of a product where you have a lead in line and you look at a market and you try to simplify something that you've created to hit a whole new audience. And you know, we challenged ourselves as a company and a brand to say we want to create something that is instantaneous, that anybody can use, that will bring people into making music, to learn about the art of sampling and stuff like that. So for us, it's created a whole new genre, it's a new product category completely that is taking the world by storm. It's like lightning in a bottle right now. And those things don't just happen overnight. You've got to understand the market. You've got to see what's going on out there. We saw things happening in the lo-fi scene. We saw people having this passion for vinyl music again, right? And we saw the younger generation who come from the FLs of this world starting to get excited about hardware again. So it doesn't matter how successful you are, you always got to understand what is going on in the marketplace and think about what's going to happen 2-3 years from that, especially with what's happening with AI now. I don't know if there's a conversation that you've got on your list, but you've got to embrace all these changes that's happening around us, because they don't go away that they innovate new equipment with technology and where the market's taken us.
Yeah, more than check. More than a question, I just got a statement. Like what these brands have done over the years. Like I'm gonna start with Akai, and I'm just gonna say my first drum machine was an MPC 60 in it had to be 1988, 89 or 88, and after that. Then switched to the 3000, and the 3000, the quantization didn't sound like the 60, and so I love, but just going to Bruce Forrat and just noticing the changes and getting customization. So what the MPC did for hip hop, being able to hook up the JV 1080 and the 880 into the MPC and actually play in sequence, and then taking the mini Moog and going to studio electronics and doing the MIDI. I mean, this was my whole setup right here. You know what I'm saying? The MIDI, and so I just go back to when I was a producer before I started doing film, and the history of your companies has been amazing, so thank y'all for coming out.
Thank you, man. I just want to say that workflow that we talk about, people like Rodney Jerkins using 1080, speeded them into 3000, stuff like that. They were the things that inspired the Key 37s and the 61s of bringing keyboards into our product to plug-in instruments, because that workflow was always around in the 90s.
And we had our racks, and our racks had all those gadgets. That was it, this whole row. So you had to have that in order to have something. There was so many records done with Akai, Roland, and the MIDI Moog, so.
I think that love there is part of why I love this stuff. Is you basically describe how you developed yourself through this equipment. And I think that's the value of it, is the self-development. And that's what I kind of get off on in education, is just hearing those stories and be like, yeah, man, I get it, and B, you're a better person now because of all that stuff. And therefore, everyone's a better person, right?
I pay attention to the liner notes while we're getting the next question up. We were talking about this earlier. Whatever the liner notes, whatever form it takes these days, there's a day way back when where you bust into the album and find out what equipment was used to make this track. Maybe it's social media now, maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's something else, but somewhere in there has this treasure that you're hunting for to find the source of that sound that you really love. And it's amazing what you find when you go on a treasure hunt. Think back to the 80s and 90s where most of the synths were pulled out of trash bins, right? They were tossed out. You've heard these stories, you got heads nodding right now. The most amazing things aren't the most expensive things. The most amazing things might be right in front of you. They might be VSTs, they might be digital, they might be analog, but who knows? You figure it out. But look for the liner notes, whatever that form is for you, wherever you go for that liner note, dig into that. There's gems in there.
Let me add to that too. If you're looking for a specific outcome, figure out how that was done, because you're not going to make 2000s house sounding exactly like Masters of Work in Ableton in 2026. You've got to go back again with the sound engines. You got to go back to what it was, or maybe you got to go forward to something that doesn't exist. I don't know.
Next question.
Yeah. To piggyback actually off, I guess, what a couple of topics you guys were saying, I'm coming to the realization, especially in the behind the scenes space, where a lot of the dichotomy between the capabilities of software versus hardware, whether new or old, are starting to show themselves and honestly become a bottleneck in certain areas of production, more so for me in producing, more so than like VSTs and things like that, plugins. But I was wondering, more so because I'm in the space of creating a product right now that kind of solves that use case, but would there be any incentive for bridging the gap that these nuances, regardless of hardware or companies, have created, so to speak, like how Moog has a certain sound versus Akai's, let's say, sampling capabilities, like there's a way that I can word this that would make a lot more sense than how I'm explaining it, but based off of experiences, I've noticed that there are certain let's say, fundamental programs or processing, let's say, like processing programs, just coding in general that can be reverse engineered to apply to certain specifics in one platform versus another. Like, is there a way that would be beneficial for that to be its own platform? I'm sorry if that got confusing, but the way that I'm seeing it in my head is that there would be a unanimous platform that kind of takes the good or the bad from all of them, kind of just reverse engineering that, but allowing the user to kind of create their own, let's say, interface utilizing different functions from those different companies. Like the most immediate physical machine that I can think of is the machine, like how it took kind of the benefits of the MPC mixed with the keyboard, mixed with a sampler, and it's allowed you to, modulate and pitch bend anything and sequence, quantize, whatever may have you. But mixing that with a software, like in my mind, there's something that doesn't exist yet, but
I'm going to fail in trying to finish your sentence, but I'm going to give it a shot. And I'm going to use a couple modes as an example. And I would say we spend as much time designing the interaction between the user and the instrument as we do designing the actual instrument itself. And how you interact with the subsequent 37, go look at it. The knob that you turn most is biggest and front and center on that beast. Right? There's a reason that is when you're performing, you don't need to look for it. You know it's there. Eventually it becomes muscle memory that if you tried to put a different instrument behind that interface, it wouldn't work the same way. It couldn't work the same way. And I'm not suggesting that your question is an impossible one or possible either way. This what I'm saying is each Moog's fingerprint is different for a reason. It's not because where it lines up with the PCBs back behind the panel. It is because that is part of the humanity that is a Moog. Yes. And when you potentially change the control surface and allow it to be replaced with a different Moog behind that one, it loses that humanity. That is kind of what it makes it. So that's how we got here.
right.
And I said it earlier, what got us here isn't going to get us there. So I say that last part not to discourage you. I'm just saying there is dozens and dozens and dozens of rounds of failures before each Moog comes to life.
When the first time expected, for sure.
Yeah. Now, the flow, I don't want to miss this. I'll be quiet from that, I promise. When we think of any instrument and how deep you have to dive to get to some degree of control, we always ask ourselves, are we getting in the way of the flow of this producer, this artist, this creative? And I can't imagine we're the only people that think that way. I think we all kind of do. What you sacrifice by not menu diving may be that next level that you really, really need. And that may be what a solution like you're proposing offers. Cool. I would rather have a more shallow instrument that is memorable in a way that keeps an artist in the flow, Mini Moog Model D. And then I'll, on the other side of my mouth, talk about the Moog 1, who's nothing but menu diving, that does amazing side. So there's no single one answer to it, which is probably why there's not a single answer to your question.
I was going to ask as a follow-up, do you think that was just like a platform more so than an actual device or software then, if that's the case?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Understood.
More questions? Okay.
Next question.
First, I want to thank you guys for being here. It's really amazing to hear everything you're sharing. I wanted to share a story and turn it into a question. A long time ago, when I was starting my career as an engineer, I was working with Deja. I don't know if some of you guys know him. And I remember, it was going into a few weeks of just creating beats. And the first day we get into the studio, he tells me, okay, I got, my keyboards. There was a bunch of Rolands and Moogs. So it's like, you guys were all involved there. And he's like, basically, I'm going to be playing everything. And you're recording everything in Pro Tools. And we're building the beat performance-wise. Like, great. Then the next day, before I show up, I get a phone call. It's like, so today, scrap that setup. Today, I'm going straight out of Logic. And then I want that go straight to the console and the speakers. Like, great. So he's programming in Logic, use some plugins, he builds a few beats. Next day, it's like I'm bringing my MPC, straight to the speakers. So after that, we're going out for lunch. I'm like, look, I can't help to ask you. I'm curious, why are you changing the setup? And he told me because every different setup is going to make me think about this differently, and it's going to take me to different outcomes. So I wanted to read that as, it made me think about workflows, right? So beyond the sounds is the workflows that different machines, different pieces of gears bring to the way you work, and how that turns your creative process into something that's constantly evolving. So I would love to get your thoughts on that.
I think one initial thought that I come to with hardware and analog gear is that, make no mistake, it makes you work a lot harder. Make no mistake. But I think the result you get as a creative when you have to pour more and more and more into it, I think you get an undeniable result. And I think there's something to be said about, turning knobs to get the right sound versus a preset that's on a VST. I think there's something to be said about it, but that's the one thing that just comes to my mind right off the bat. How about you guys?
Yeah, I think workflow and sound engine are similar in that how you have to create the sound does change the creative process for sure. I think it's interesting and super excited to hear that's CAN audio, right? All ways of doing it. That's genius. Probably why he's the producer that he is. I think now, well, first of all, there are tools that are good for certain things. When I worked in TV, there's no way hardware is going to work because changes have to be made in the instant, and it might be a fraction of a second cut, this, that. There's no way to call up. So yeah, it's going to be software every single time. But if there's a luxury of creating a huge library of all kinds of stuff, I think it's absolute genius. And I'm sure that stuff was mixed and matched too. That's my opinion.
Andy?
Yeah, workflow is really, really interesting because I know a lot of people who tend to jump into different devices because they get a different feel every time. Just as much as sound things, even where the buttons are placed and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Or what keyboard you go to and what preset. I do it all the time as well. Do you know what I mean? I chop, different keyboards around, different plugins. I change because I like to just get different energies from different platforms. And I see it with producers as well all the time. They'll jump from a Live 3 to an XL because it feels different. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like I've got the flagship and it makes me think different. And it's true, it does. It's the same from DAWs. You could bounce between Studio One. You could go between Ableton. And like you say, we won't get into that sound war, as they say, with different DAWs, but people do it for that reason. It's like, this one sounds better than that one. I get a different flow out of FL versus Ableton. So it is a thing. And I see it online all the time, but in some ways, a lot of the producers, there's not one single person I know who I would say has a formula set out. I'd look at Jermaine Dupri, and he has the most simplest system ever. He'll have his XL, couple of little monitors, right? And he doesn't get distracted by anything at all. No hardware, nothing. Where going to my studio, I have a bunch of SSL 4000s and stuff, just because I grew up on that. Do I need them? Probably not. I love them because I just like what it does. It makes me feel good. And you get that with microphones and stuff. For example, I always remember with Craig David, his Born to Do It album, he did that on an NT2 Rode microphone, right? Whole album with Mark Hill. So, when you think of stuff like U87s, yeah, incredible microphone, right? But it doesn't define you as a songwriter or as a vocalist. If you can't sing, you can't sing, right? But if you can sing, a U87 is going to make you sound amazing. So there's certain tools for the job, and I think when you look at an XL as a flagship, it's a statement piece as well. It's like you've been doing music for a long time, you want to be proud of what you do, and it's an investment into your hobby or your craft, and that's what I love about how people invest their time in equipment, because it reflects their personality as well.
No. Well, I think do we have time for one more?
you really want to ask this question. You've been having your hand up.
My guys, y'all been talking to me all day, and I appreciate that. So, first and foremost, I want to ask how y'all feel about like the conversation behind like beginner gear, because in my life, okay, I'm 38. I've been making beats since 13. I also used to work in music sales. I've worked for Sam Ash. I've worked for Guitar Center. I've worked for Sounds.com. And it was always this conversation of, I don't need this. I'm just a beginner or whatever the situation may be. But there are people that started on an MPC. It just kept that MPC all through their career. There were people that started on an SP1200 or an 808 or a Bo, whatever, or MPC, whatever, and they just kept that thing going on. And I used to tell people it's not a beginner versus where you going thing. It's that get what you really want and get what you want to learn on now and save up for that. That way you only upgrade if you want to, not upgrade if you have to. So I want to know, how do y'all feel about the conversation behind what's for beginners and what's not? And also I want to give you a compliment because, again, I'm 38. I've been making beats since 13. It's crazy that in 2026, we still talking Bob Bogue synthesizers, Roland 808s, and Akai MPCs. It is still making hits, by the way. So, yeah, man, I'm curious to know what's y'all opinion on the whole beginner versus conversation. And thank you all for being here. Thank y'all for putting up with me all day.
Yeah, no, thank you for rocking with us. I think, man, and how I look at that question and that road is, I don't think there's any such thing as beginner gear. I can give you a handful of stories of cats that did some shit on you would never guess they did it on. John Bottom, you thought he was an amazing room and that's how his drums got that echo, but the truth be told, it was a staircase hall. So you just never know, that way. It's like if you find a way to take what you have and make something uniqueful or something unique and something impactful, then it becomes the standard. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember having a Roland 626 and man, I did some fire beats on that joint and that was like the lowest on the totem pole. But, I think it's how you use the tool. Everybody's got a tool belt, everybody's got new things, and AI is a new tool, you know what I mean? And I intentionally didn't want to have that conversation because I feel it's like it's taboo now. It's like, how do you feel about AI? But I think, it's what works for your creativity. It's what's going to allow you to get into the weeds and come up with something that feels great, and that could be anything under the sun, What do you think, Andy? Jared?
I agree. I don't think there is beginner gear. Like, is there a beginner saxophone? Is there a beginner flute? Is there a beginner guitar? It's just, stuff's hard.
Yeah.
And so my advice is get a piece and really, really learn that thing.
Yeah.
And if you really hate it, well, then sell it and try something else. Now, if you hate that other thing that you sold, maybe it's you. I don't know.
Dude, what I would say is, going back to what you were saying when you started, the one thing that we have now is different price points. Like back then, technology was very expensive. Do you know what I mean? So if you wanted to get into music, it was a 5 to 10 grand investment.
Easily.
You'd buy the mixer. I remember, I'm going to share this story. I've done it on a couple of other panels in the past, but it's a really interesting one. Now, we all take it. We take advantage of technology like Loop It, right? Now, many years ago, I didn't have a sampler because they were so expensive. And I mean like expensive. So my mate, one of my old mates, John, he had a S1000, which was about £3,000 back in like early 90s. I saved up for an R8 tape sheet, right? 8 tracks.
Yeah.
I had to drive to his house, which was 30 minutes away, strike tape with SIP-T and record a loop in stereo. I had to use 2 tracks. I was really just gutted. So I only had like 5 left. And then brought my 8-track back to the studio, synced it up with my sequencer just to have a loop. Just one loop. And that's what you had to do back then because equipment was very expensive.
You had to work harder, like I say, you made you work harder.
And we live in an era now where like MPC sample is like, $400 for something that you can you could go up there and create an album. You could create an album on an aeroplane, like the boutique stuff that you guys brought out, things we've been doing with Moog. We're making products that are accessible to people as well, you know. So, and it's also, it's the creative aspect of products. There's something that you find appealing about it. There's no right or wrong. It's like, well, I don't deserve it yet. It's like, you get what you feel is right for you.
Yeah. You know, on that note, Aaron.
Okay, everybody. I also would like to say something, actually. I've had the privilege of working with a bunch of these brands, and it is a privilege to have you here. But when you think about just how like nascent and young some of this stuff is, like you get to go to NAMM and walk the show floor and meet Roger Litt. The people who invented this, they're still alive, right? Or George Massenburg, like parametric EQ. These things are it's still the wild, wild west. It's crazy excited. So even though these brands have been around for a long time, this whole thing is still just wildly new. And I get really excited listening to you talk about these things. So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I do want to say something. You know, Joe really knows how I move when it comes to family. And I think to be a part of ASU in a space where we can inspire the next, because you truly are the next. I just personally want to thank you, Andy Mack, for coming all the way out from the UK. Joe, I want to thank you for coming out and really believing in what we're doing here at ASU for our students. And, you know, that means something because this type of access don't usually exist. You know what I mean? There's literally, like, usually there's layers and layers and layers. So to have this here and to have that commitment and that belief in moving the bar of education forward is such a massive thing. And as I believe as you get further in your creative journey, you're going to see those things that you have access to and that you had a reach to that lived here at ACU. So that's one. Secondly, I definitely wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Jared introducing me to Aaron. So I want to make sure I give him his love and his props because, as I said, relationships are everything.
It was a no-brainer.
And most of the time, relationships are more valuable than talent, just to keep it 100. So I thank you all for giving us the time to do something impactful for the students. I love you guys. You guys are my bros. Joe's like my big bro pops. So thank y'all, man. Thank you guys for pulling up and showing your support and really diving in. That means the world to me. Thank you.
All right, one more round of applause for our panel today. Thank you so much. All right, the fun continues out in Civic Space Park here. There's a whole festival this evening, band called Fear of Making Out, Losa Spleece, and Chewy. So it's going to be a badass time. They just got off tour with Bad Bunny, so come enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Peace.
Camera cut.